Hello, this is Joseph Miles. This is an addendum to a presentation that I previously did for Hope and Achievement for Depressed Adolescents. This is a proposal for a study, and I discuss it more in depth at the YouTube address that's listed in the middle of the slide. I did find a math error in the number of study subjects that would be needed to complete the study, so slide 10 of this presentation has been changed. So I will stress more discussion at that point. For this presentation, I will just glance over the rest of the material. To see the full discussion, please go to the YouTube address listed in the middle of this slide. So quick background for the study is that when we treat depression right now, most studies look at depressive symptoms that go away essentially. A decrease in negative effects of depression. The purpose of this study is to try to look for positive outcomes in treating depression, specifically an increase in hope and an increase in school performance and achievement are the factors that we're looking for. Most things in the past looked at hopelessness, if they looked at hope at all, but as has been pointed out in literature, a lack of hopelessness does not equate to having hope. So that is something we want to look for in this particular study. Here's some links from Healthy People 2020, just justifying the importance of depression, treating depression specifically in an adolescent population. Specific aims of the study is to explore the correlation between depression treatment, hope, and achievement. Find that correlation of decreased depression symptoms with increases in hope with increased achievement, and then following that logic through to find decreased depression symptoms equating to increased achievement, especially for an adolescent population where a lot changes for them in a short period of time. So the null hypothesis in this project would be that treating depression will have no effect on hope nor achievement. The alternate hypothesis that we're looking at is that treating depression in adolescents will improve a measure of hope as compared to baseline, and then an increase in hope will correlate with an improvement in academic achievement scores. So the design, again, I mentioned that it's adolescents. We narrowed it down to ages 12 to 15. We would prefer them to be referred from physicians or clinicians to have an active diagnosis of moderate to severe depression. The depressed adolescents would be randomized between cognitive behavior therapy plus medication and cognitive therapy plus placebo, and recruit equal sizes of those groups. And we would also like to recruit recruit a group of control adolescents that are unaffected by depression to compare to our treatment group, so we can get a good assessment of how much treating depression affects hope and achievement. And I have the different tests that would be administered at the bottom of the slide. This is an example of the Child Hope Scale. Pretty simple, 6 questions. Each question would have the 6 options listed there. Because of its simplicity, we would plan on administering this test 3 times throughout the 12-week study. So this is the timeline for those 12 weeks. You have the baseline testing, the halfway point we would re-administer the hope test, and at the end we would check depression symptoms for our treatment groups and then retest hope and achievement for all groups. The plan for data analysis would be to use Microsoft Excel and the Real Statistics package, and we would use repeated measure ANOVA for testing depression treatment, hope, and achievement from time 0 through to time 2. And then we could do one-way ANOVA analysis to compare treatment groups with the control groups. We would also like to find the coefficient of determination and correlation coefficients so that we can see what degree of change in depression is associated with hope, and change in hope that's associated with achievement, and depression to achievement, and see how much of those correlate. This is the slide that I mentioned that is changed from the original. The mean change, after analyzing 10 different previous studies, we have increased this from 1.2 points to 1.7 points. Would be a more realistic expectation, and also for clinical significance, we would be looking for a little bit more than a 1.2 change in that hope scale. Standard deviation is the same across those studies at 3.01 to 6.11. I didn't go with the full conservative 6.11 as I did in the original presentation. I've taken the average of these standard deviations and gone with 4.56. Continued with the 80% power and the alpha of 0.05. Using that effect size of 1.7, we came up with 113 subjects per group. I changed this from a 20% loss to a 15%. The real numbers I've seen in previous studies are probably closer to 10 anyway. So to try to keep this study in that 400 subject vicinity, so we'll keep this at 133 subjects per group. Standard deviation is 14 for the achievement scale, the Wyatt exam, as previously mentioned. So if we can retain 113 subjects and assume that 80% power, we would be able to detect a difference of 5.22 points on the Wyatt exam. Based on similar research in the past, it seems like the expectation would be that at the beginning, we'd expect a score around 93 on the Wyatt exam. A population average would be 100. And since the goal is to see if we can get the group of adolescents to achieve their potential and move that back towards the average of 100, that we would be able to detect that with this particular test. Even if it falls a little bit short, we do have some wiggle room there with the power of the study. So expected outcome, we did account for the loss to follow-up, so we would disregard lost subjects and just note, if we know why they had to leave the study, we would note that in the final analysis. We would expect depression symptoms to decrease because in the full background for this study, it's following a familiar setup, so that from previous studies we would expect that both placebo and medication to improve as far as decreased depression symptoms because of the addition of the cognitive behavior therapy for both groups. Hope would be expected to increase based on previous studies, but what we are searching for is significance, and also if there is a difference between placebo and medication. And that difference could go both ways. We could find that placebo is better, we could find that medication is better. And similarly, it would be the same discussion for achievement, significance, and in which direction achievement is better with placebo or medication. As far as the decision to go with the 80% power, there is this mention of the Tavernier and Giordano meta-analysis from 2015, where they did find that presuming an 80% power did result in a 23% chance of being underpowered. However, because of the nature of the study and one of the major goals is to find correlation between these changes, I decided to stick with the 80% power and expose as few adolescents to this intervention as possible, just in case, just to decrease that risk. Figured keeping the number below 400 was the best choice given the adolescent nature of the subjects in the study. So just as a matter of discussion commentary, again, I have this more in depth in the previous video that I mentioned at the beginning of this, but adolescents don't have all the tools in their toolbox as an adult may, as far as coping with a major depressive episode, and it could be a fairly catastrophic event in adolescent years, because if they do start falling behind socially and academically, it's a tough age to recover. And one of the goals of this study would be to find a recipe for avoiding that eventuality, and giving adolescents the best chance for success. I do have mentioned the National Institute of Mental Health and RDoC. I go more in depth into that in the last video. But right now, the HOPE is not on the radar of the National Institute of Mental Health. And so it would be one of the goals of this study to increase awareness of HOPE. And as I mentioned in the next line, it's not necessarily just increasing awareness. Most of the studies behind the material in this presentation and what is used in the proposal for this research is information that dates back for 20 years. So this is renewed awareness of this. And to finish this off, I just have a quote here. If youth are to be successful in an ever-increasing competitive global environment, it is essential that their academic achievements reflect their innate ability. I believe that the depressive episode does not define the adolescent, and any chance that we can to give them the chance to achieve their potential is always going to result in positive effects. Thank you very much. If after watching this video you have any questions or comments, you can send me an email message. My email address is jmiles, Jmiles 3 @oswego.edu. Thank you for watching this presentation. I'm going to leave this with the references that were used to create this presentation. And again, thank you for watching this, and contact me if you have any questions.